Please give a warm welcome to Megan Zavieh.
Wow, thank you, Chad. That was a much kinder introduction than I even knew was coming. Thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, I am an ethics lawyer. I practice primarily in California, defending you guys, hopefully not actually you, but our colleagues, before the state bar in disciplinary actions. And I also do a lot of writing and talking about ethics issues. But today I'm going to talk about something a little different, hopefully a little more interesting. So I'm going to jump in first by asking you guys some questions and get to know you a little bit. How many of you out there like to run? Like, awesome. I mean not someone chasing you, just for fun. Hey, any of you ultra distance runners? Okay. What about mountain bikers? Okay, y'all are crazy, that's all I can say. Okay, I run on mountain bike trails and you guys go zipping past and I'm like, holy cow, I'm so glad I'm not on a bike. Anybody do anything like surf? Awesome, okay. What else did I come up with? Rock climbing. Any rock climbers? Any other like really crazy sports that people think you're insane and this is totally what you love to do? No, okay. So for some of you, is getting up from the couch for another beer at commercials a workout? All right, honesty and integrity in the profession right there. So this talk is called Law Practice Lessons Learned on the Race Course. And I want to tell you a little bit about what I mean by the race course, and obviously from my questions you probably get some sense of it. But about 5 years ago, the longest I ran without chasing a soccer ball was about a mile. Now my dad was my soccer coach when I was a kid, and he likes to challenge me on that, and he says, well, when you were on the field, you'd run, I don't know, he came up with some statistics he read somewhere, how many miles a kid ran in an average game. But put me in PE class where I had to run a mile, and I thought I was going to die. But somewhere along the way as an adult, I kind of got bitten by this running bug. And I really couldn't tell you what started it, but with a newborn baby and living in Sydney, Australia at that time, I decided that at night when my husband got home from work, I was going to go for a run. And I know he thought I was completely insane at the time because I had never been interested. So I started the Couch to 5K running program. Any of you decide you want to start running, it's an awesome program. And I ran every night. And then it kind of tapered off, and then came back. And then literally one day I just was like, this is something I have to do. And I started doing it all the time. I started doing longer races. I started doing half marathons. Decided to run a trail marathon one time. Just decided I had a free race entry, and there it was, and I jumped on it. And then eventually I moved into obstacle course racing. Have any of you ever done an obstacle course race? Awesome. Maybe seen one on TV? American Ninja Warrior, that kind of thing. Wipeout was really fun, kind of almost parody on it. So I'm not an American Ninja Warrior, let me be clear. Okay. But it's that kind of thing as an obstacle course race. And I ran my first obstacle course race in December of 2016. So it's really not that long ago. And this is going to be important later, so I want to tell you how it came about that I did this race. So my favorite obstacle course races are Spartans, and you might have heard of others. There's Tough Mudder, Terrain, Savage. For me, my Facebook feed's full of all these ads for these races, so you might have heard of them. But in December of 2016, I really had not. I knew that they existed, but I couldn't have told you the name of any of them. And I had a running partner. We ran every week, and we did all these half marathons together and all. And I was perusing Groupon one night, and there was a Spartan Groupon. And I texted her, our kids are in bed, it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, hey, you want to do an obstacle course race? She's like, sure. So Spartans have 3 lengths. There's a sprint, which is like 5 miles, and a super is about 10, and a beast is 13. Somewhere in there anyway. And the Groupon was for the shorter one or the middle one. And I'm like, let's not do the short one. You want to do the long one? She goes, sure. So we sign up. We have no clue what we are getting into. None. So I've since learned people train for this. Interesting, right? Like, they run every week for it, and they go to the gym, and they practice pull-ups, and they practice rope climbs, and they do all of these things that I had never done. I had only been running. So the night before the race, my friend says, "You think we should read the rule book?" I'm like, yeah, all right. That sounds like a good idea. So we download the rule book. And I read that if you fail an obstacle, you have to do 30 of this thing called a burpee. I'm like, okay, what's a burpee? Now, my dad lives with me, and I went down to his place downstairs, and I said, "Dad, what's a burpee?" And he shows me a burpee. I'm like, well, it doesn't look too bad. I guess I could do 30 of those. How many obstacles are there? Oh, there's 25 obstacles. Okay, well, hopefully I can make some of them and not do 30 burpees at every obstacle. So burpees and I have since become awesome frenemies. I have done thousands of them at this point, but that night, I'd never done one. So we show up the next morning. It's 25 degrees. We're freezing our tails off. And everybody around us clearly knows a lot more about this race than we do. Right? They're like totally prepared. They've got the right gear. They're talking the lingo. They're, oh, I heard this one doesn't have a Tyrolean traverse. Oh, thank God. We're like, oh, what? We have no clue what they're talking about. To give you a sense of how little I knew, in Spartan, the word AROO is used a lot. I had seen it in their emails. Right, at the bottom of the email, it said AROO exclamation point. Okay. I read that and I was like, so is that like a wolf? Like, aroo. So we get to the starting line and everyone's going, aroo, aroo, aroo. I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't say that out loud. Right? I mean, clearly I do not belong here. And we're walking up to this start, and there's this 4-foot wall you have to climb over just to get into the starting corral. And I'm quickly realizing how out of my element I am. I really wanted to turn around at that wall. I'm like, I haven't even gotten to the start. But my friend was not one to let me quit. She was just a really amazing encourager. She goes, come on, let's get over this wall. So we did. We got up to the start, and the butterflies are going. But you know, a race starts whether you're ready or not. That horn goes off whether you're saying, okay, yes, I'm ready to go, or you're still standing there just totally freaked out, which I was. So the horn goes, we go off, and we have the best morning ever. Totally hooked on these races after that. So hooked that I've gone on and done 11 more. A few weeks ago, I did my longest, a Spartan Ultra in Breckenridge, Colorado. It was 32 miles up and down a ski resort, had 68 obstacles, took me 13 hours. I am still exhilarated from it, and it was several weeks ago at this point. So clearly this was something that I am so happy I did, but that's how close I came to not doing it. So I'm going to show you how all of that relates to law practice, but you have to have that background to kind of understand the rest of what I'm going to say. So around the same time that I'm getting really into obstacle course racing and having so much fun with it, my law practice was also growing. Now, my solo practice is not what I envisioned at the start of my career. I spent many years in big law in New York. I had at one point an actually realistic goal of making partner before I was 30. That was really important to me at one time. And then I had a baby. And everything about my perspective changed. And I know I'm not the first to say that. I know the men say that too. That's not just something that we women go through. But everything changed for me. And that goal of partnership really wasn't that interesting anymore. So things started to change. We moved back to California. I stepped off of the associate to partner track in my firm, and I was working a different type of position there. And then I had another baby. And the economy tanked. And I decided to go solo. Now, I'd love to tell you that I had this all worked out when I went solo. That where I am today is exactly where I envisioned. But the truth is I didn't envision anything. I started my solo practice partly out of necessity, partly out of curiosity, and really with this blind faith that I was doing something that I really should be doing. And part of that faith came from the excitement that I felt. Now, big law has a way of kind of squashing that flame inside of us. And I always like to talk to people who disagree with me. I love that there are people who disagree with me out there, because honestly, I don't want people to feel the way I did, but I know I'm not the only one who does. So I came out of Big Law realizing I hadn't really been excited about my work in a long time. And going solo and starting to help other lawyers was really exciting for me. So I didn't have some big grand opening. I didn't have a firm name. I didn't have a website. I didn't have business cards. I had one case. And I wasn't getting paid. And on that pleading paper, I wrote Megan Zavieh, attorney at law, and my home address. And I was just out there. No grand plan. It's kind of like that first race. I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I had enough basics, right? At that first race, I was fit enough to go out there and do whatever came around the next corner and at least give it a try and do my burpees if I couldn't do it. And when I set out as a solo, I knew the basics. I knew how to use pleading paper. I knew where the court was. I knew how to make basic arguments, and I knew I could figure it out. I wasn't violating my duty to perform competently, but I was no expert. And that's been one of those lessons that I've learned out there. You really don't need to know on day one how to do everything. We as lawyers are such perfectionists. I mean, come on, I don't think anybody in this room probably would disagree with that. We hold ourselves back with our perfectionism. We're so afraid of not having all the ducks in a row that we don't even start. And I certainly see that in my ethics practice. I get consulted by people who say, I have this idea, but I'm pretty sure the ethics rules are going to stop me from doing it. Now, the fact that they've even called me, they've gone further than a lot of people. Because a lot of people just have the idea and immediately put it away and go, nah, the ethics rules aren't going to let me. Because we let things stop us. We're so intent on knowing everything and being perfect at it that we don't even start. So since 2009, I have learned so much by trial and error and from the advice of good friends. And had I stopped back then and said, well, I really don't know everything yet, I'm not going to start, I would really, really regret it. Instead, what's so much more important than knowing all the steps and knowing all the law is to do something that excites you. And I absolutely learned that out on the trail. Even if you don't have all the answers, if it is stirring something inside of you and you really want to show up and do it, seriously consider doing it. At that first Spartan race, I went out with no map, which I then learned later you actually can get a map. You can actually know where you're going. Look at that. I now do tend to print it out and I stick it in my pocket and I always forget to look at it after that. But hey, look, there's a map. I didn't even know that, right? Something as basic as that. I didn't know I was going to run into a 4-foot wall before the starting line. But then it was so amazing to have done it. And at work, we need to have that same kind of energy. We can't force it. Our clients know it, the courts know it, when you're just showing up and clocking in. So do something that you actually have the energy for. And if you're intimidated by the idea that you don't have all the answers yet, keep this in mind. You probably know more than you realize that you do. Now, sadly, I have taken 3 bar exams. Okay, I tend to move to states that don't let me waive in. I don't recommend it to anyone. I've waived in once. Thank goodness Georgia let me do that because I'm not taking another one. But that means I've taken a lot of bar exam prep courses. And I've heard a lot of bar exam advice. And my favorite piece of advice has always stuck with me. It was from my very first Barbary course when I took California, which now feels like ancient history. But the advice was, if you come to a bar exam question and you don't know the answer, make it up. And it's not a joke. Like, it kind of sounds like somebody's teasing you, but they're not. There's actually amazing logic behind it. By the time you get to the bar exam, you have so much law inside your head. And you have analyzed so many cases and law school exam problems and practice bar exam problems that if you make it up, the truth is you're probably pulling out some knowledge that you're not consciously aware you have. And whatever you come up with and put on the page is going to be damn close. And even if you have the rule wrong, You're capable of analyzing under that rule that's not quite right. So in your law practice, it really is the same. Only now we have books that you can go look at, and you're not stuck in a bar exam room where you can't even get up and go to the bathroom if you need to. You know more than you think you do. So when you're out to do something in your law practice that's stirring an excitement inside you, but you don't have all the answers, fall back on that confidence that you probably do know a lot more than you realize. And that's something I certainly have experienced on the race course too. I'm more capable than I think I am. And there's this really wonderful idea that when you do have a place where you get stuck because you don't know, there are alternatives. Get used to that idea. There's always an alternative. Now in a Spartan race, that alternative is 30 burpees. I'd prefer not to do the burpees. Okay, I'd prefer to climb the rope, climb the wall, whatever the obstacle is, but there is an option. In law practice, we hit roadblocks like that all the time, and some are really obvious. I lost the case in litigation. I can appeal. There's my alternative. A business formation client came to me, the name they want is already taken. Come up with another name. I'm starting a solo law practice. I want to be an LLC. California doesn't let me. Okay, I'll find an alternative. But if you get used to the idea that there's always another solution, there's always an alternative, you can pull that into so many other areas of your practice where you might not so easily realize there is an option. I see it a lot with business development. Lawyers are actually super creative and have amazing ideas and then get stuck really easily. Sometimes that ad you want to run that you're not allowed to run, there's another way to do what you're trying to get to. So don't assume that the path you're trying to take is the only way to the goal. Step back, stop looking at the path and start looking at the endpoint you're trying to get to and realize there's always options. There's always alternatives. Now at some point, you are gonna fail. You just are. We're perfectionists, but at some point, it's not gonna go the way we planned. And when that happens, do your burpees. Do every single one. The degree of commitment on the race course varies. There are elite runners out there competing for prize money. Their burpees are filmed and monitored. And if they miss one burpee, they get 5 minutes added to their time. The open runners, nobody's watching. Nobody is interested in whether you did them all, whether your chest hit the ground each time, whether your hands were above your head when you jumped up each time. But you know. You know, your neighbors know, but remember, you know, right? That's the most important thing. You know. Our integrity is so important in this profession, and there are so many ways we can cut corners. So many. You know, I signed in when I got here yesterday for attending one of the tracks. Ultimately, I really didn't go. I was working on this speech. I could get CLE credit for this. I signed in. Nobody would know. But you go back and you take your name off that list. You don't actually attend, you don't take the credit. You don't actually earn a fee before you withdraw it, you don't do it. And that's one I wanted to raise because it's part of the new ethics rules. Not that we're trying to get CLE for the ethics in this. But this is a really good example of what I mean, because the CLE is kind of obvious, right? So under California's new ethics rules, you get an advance fee, you have to put it in trust now. We didn't used to have to do that. As of November 1st, we do. So let's say the client pays you in advance, you put it in trust, and your agreement says that once you've appeared at that first hearing, you can withdraw the fee, it's yours. And the hearing's Tuesday. But on Monday, you realize that your mortgage is due Tuesday. And if you don't withdraw that fee Monday and get it in bank to clear, you can't pay your mortgage on Tuesday. And you know the hearing's going forward, you're all set, client's all set, you take the money out a day early, you put it in checking, you pay your mortgage on Tuesday, you go to the hearing, you earn the fee, awesome, nobody ever knows, right? Not right. It's a really big deal. Our integrity is all that we have to bank on in this profession. And we have a lot of people in it who aren't following those rules. So always think about that. when you are confronted with any situation where cutting a corner is possible. Just don't do it. And you can't go by what you see your colleagues doing. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the course, especially in the late afternoon. The less serious racers go later, usually. It's just how it tends to work out with pricing. And they'll be counting their burpees. 1, 2, 3, 10, 12, 25. Right, and they're looking around, eyeing. Is anybody watching? Is anybody paying attention? Your fellow lawyers are sometimes doing things wrong too. They might not be doing it intentionally. If you're on social media, that's a huge topic of conversation. We have 1 million articles and webinars on that because it's a huge area of violation. People aren't counting their burpees wrong. They think they're doing it right. Okay, so I'm not saying that your colleagues who are doing things incorrectly do it intentionally. A lot of times they just don't know the rules. So you've got to go back and read that rule book and make sure you know what you're doing and doing it right. Now, your practice is also going to be filled with unexpected opportunities. And when you get those, don't overthink them. We overthink as a group, as a collective. I think that a lot of it is just the personalities that are drawn to law. I think part of it is the training we get. We're so risk averse. I mean, come on, of all the professions, what do we do all day? We sift through the problems created by risks that went wrong. Right? So of course we're risk averse. But we tend to overthink things that could be really good for us. And we talk ourselves out of it. And that is something that I am constantly reminded of in racing. I had a situation just a few weeks ago, goes back I guess about a little over a month. I had registered for an ultra race in Killington, Vermont. That was a big deal to me. Okay, it might sound insane. Yes, I wanted to go climb a mountain that, as it turns out, more than half the people couldn't finish. I would probably have been one of them, but I didn't know that at the time. I was super excited that I registered. It was tough for me to get over the hump and actually do it. But once I registered, I was so engrossed in this. I was doing things like trying out different fuels. I was buying new socks, and that's like totally a thing. Okay, I was like super excited about my socks. I was totally ready to go do this race, and I had 10 weeks to train. And I was hitting that training every day. Yes, 10 weeks, 9 weeks, 8 weeks. And separately, a friend of mine really wanted to speak at the California Lawyers Association meeting that was last week. So we submitted for that. I was, at that time, the immediate past chair of the solo section, and so we had a way to get our presentation considered, and we did, and it was awesome, and they accepted us. And you can totally hear this coming, right? I get this email. Yes, you get to speak. Like, yay, go put it on the calendar. Oh, I'm supposed to be in Killington, Vermont that day. And I've been planning this and training for this. Okay, so I look at the calendar and I think, what else can I do? I'm super into this. What can I do? Well, there's only one other race the whole year I can make. And it's in Breckenridge, Colorado, which starts at 9,000 feet. I don't live at 9,000 feet. And it's 4 weeks sooner. So I'm gonna lop 4 weeks off my training program. I'm gonna fly out where it's really super expensive to stay, to even get to with a rental car. I'm going to do all of these crazy things that I'm not prepared to do. This just sounds insane. The number of reasons I had to talk myself out of it were many. And my racing friends all said, stop overthinking it. This was your plan to go do an ultra, go do the ultra. And so I had to set myself aside and seriously go, okay, I'm not gonna overthink it. Registered, booked the plane, and went, all right, here I go. Well, it was awesome, right? I've already told you that. It was amazing. The same thing can happen in law. When I moved back to the United States, I'd been overseas, I really wanted to get involved with the California bar. I'd felt really distant. So what I wanted more than anything was to be on COPRAC, the Committee on Professional Responsibility and Conduct. They write the ethics opinions. I totally wanted that job. So I filled out an application, I got an interview, and on the application that I had sent in, they said, is there any other committee you wanted to be considered for? And I saw the solo section. Well, yeah, that sounds interesting too. I'm a solo, I'll put that in. So I go to my COPRAC interview, it was by phone. I blew it. So like not my finest moment. Okay. So needless to say, I didn't get that. But the solo section invited me to join. So here it was, not my intention. It wasn't what I set out to do, but instead of overthinking it, I took it. Turned out to be the 5 amazing years of service on that committee. I have met so many amazing people. I've had opportunities that stemmed from it. So much I would have regretted had I overthought it and not taken the unexpected opportunity. But as we go through our practices, we can't always do it alone. Obstacles on a race course aren't always meant to be done alone either. Not for mere mortals, like elites, yes, but not the rest of us. So on the race course, especially on Spartan race course, you need to learn to ask for a Spartan handshake. You have any idea what a Spartan handshake looks like? That's somebody else's hand, usually somebody you don't know, firmly planted right there, pushing you up and over an obstacle. Now, I'm not saying go ask people to grab you. I can just hear all the political correctness. That's not what I'm saying. But that's uncomfortable, right? Especially the first time, especially when you're on the course alone. It is uncomfortable to ask for that kind of help. And in law practice, we need help a lot of times, and it's uncomfortable to ask. We don't want to say that we don't know something. We don't want to say, hey, I'm in this courtroom, I'm about to go up there, and I actually don't know the process for something. Turn to the lawyer next to you who clearly knows and ask. Get used to being uncomfortable and get okay with that. Because you'll go a lot further in practice if you're willing to ask. You can cut through hours of research that you honestly can't bill for. You can cut through a lot of stress and anxiety simply by asking your colleagues for help. And there's something else that comes when we're not okay with asking for help, and it's a real problem in our profession. The stress that comes from that anxiety of not knowing what to do and not being able to ask for help can lead to burnout, depression, substance abuse. They're huge issues. And there's no doubt that one of the causes is our perfectionism and our lack of reaching out. Now, someone is going to ask you for that Spartan handshake too. And when they do, don't touch them, but give the help. Give the help. Some of the most rewarding experiences I've had out on the trail have been from helping other people. At our race one time, I couldn't even tell you which one it was, because I can just picture this 8-foot wall in front of me, and I can picture the whole event that happened there, but I couldn't tell you when or where exactly it was. My friend and I were at the wall, climbing over each other to climb over the wall, and we heard a woman come up behind us, and we heard her say, well, I'm doing burpees. And we looked at her, why would you do burpees at this wall? So we turned around and we saw her, and she was heading over to the side, getting ready to go do her burpees, and we stopped her and we said, what are you doing? Stop, don't do burpees, we'll help you. You'll get over this wall. And she said, oh, thanks, no, it's okay, I'll just do my burpees. And we thought she was crazy. So we told her again, no, come. It's really easy to get over this wall. And she's like, no, it isn't. I'm like, yes, it is, let us show you. So my friend squatted down against the wall, I climbed up on her knees, I stood on her shoulders, and I went over the wall. And then, same thing, she did that with me. Like, see, this is how you do it. She's like, okay, I think I'm gonna hurt you. Like, you're not gonna hurt us, come on. So she went over that wall by climbing up on us, standing on our shoulders, and going over. And do you know what I remember about that day more than anything? Is the look on her face at the top of that wall. She's hanging up there 8 feet in the air, probably trying to figure out how she's gonna drop on the other side. And she was just stunned. She went over. So when somebody asks you for help, it's incredible how rewarding it can be to give it. In our profession, we have so much animosity. You know, my dad became a lawyer in 1975, and he talks about the change in the profession over those years and all. Well, I only became a lawyer in 1999. I missed the first, bulk of his career. It doesn't really make a difference whether you're talking the 70s or you're talking the 2018. People get so nasty in this profession, and they think that it's a lawyer versus lawyer war, and it's not. It seems to me, from where I stand, that it's worse in things like family law and civil litigation. I don't know, maybe it's bad all around. But there's no reason for that. There's no reason in this profession not to be kind and to help each other. Your opposing counsel needs an extension. Well, you know you're gonna need one someday too. Give it to them. right? As long as they're not being abusive, give it to them. Or a junior lawyer calls you up. Maybe it's one of you is the junior lawyer calling somebody up, saying, hey, I have a new practice area I'm trying to get into. I don't know the first thing about it. Will you talk to me? Will you mentor me? If you receive that call, say yes. Someone said yes to me many years ago. I made 2 cold calls asking for help when I joined the State Bar Defense world. I made 2 calls to people who were super experienced. They were literally prosecuting lawyers before I was born and then defending them when I was a toddler. And I said to the one who returned my call, I'm doing this work now. I know the basics. I need to know more. Will you help me? He's still my mentor. The other one never called me back, and I see him sometimes, and I always think I should say something. Maybe I will one day. He's a nice guy. I kind of forgave him. But that encouragement that we give each other is all over, whether it's in the profession or outside of it. Those opportunities are everywhere. Now in running, I hadn't really heard the phrase, you got this, used so much until I got out on a race course. But those 3 words get me choked up sometimes. They're so loaded now. There are no more encouraging words you can give to a fatigued runner. And it's simple. You don't need to know anything about them. You don't need to know their name. But you run past somebody and you go, you got this. And that person is uplifted. When I ran in Colorado, it was an incredibly grueling race. It was so long and so tiring. And mentally, really, really easy to break down. And ultra runners shared the course with beast runners. So we were doing it twice, beast runners were doing it once. So to tell us apart, so the officials could tell us apart, we wore this little purple pinny. It's like a little net shirt. Looks like a high school football overshirt. And everybody could tell as you came up that you were ultra. And there were times, totally in my head, not paying any attention to anything around me, and I'd hear, you got this, ultra! And I would just be brought up. Never underestimate the power of that encouraging word and how much you can give it in court when you see a new lawyer who doesn't know what they're doing, or an associate in your firm, even a partner who's above you who's anxious about something. We all could use that encouragement. And remember that for yourself, you got this too. Whatever it is you've decided to try that's different, that's challenging your limits, that's outside your comfort zone, you got this. You have the knowledge, you have the skills. Now there are going to be moments when you are completely fatigued. Running, it's obvious, right? I can tell you, oh yeah, I'm physically exhausted, but we're mentally exhausted. And in law, with the long hours we take on, the client matters that stress us, I mean, one of my favorite articles out there is one written by Sam Glover from Lawyerist, and the concept is why lawyers are not overpaid. And the idea is because we take on our client stress. Well, we do, and that wears us out. Especially, I know a lot of your family law attorneys, I have so much respect for you. I couldn't take on that kind of stress. I take on the stress of the lawyers facing the bar. They're sometimes facing disbarment, and I internalize that. So we're fatigued. And when that happens, you're really overwhelmed, turn off the chatter and focus. I think the best way to describe what I mean is to go back to the racing analogy. You're standing at the foot of a mountain and you know you have to climb it. And your legs are burning and your breathing's labored, and the last thing you want to do is climb up there. There's people talking around you. There's conversations of other runners. Maybe you're overhearing them. Maybe somebody's talking to you. Maybe you're counting in your head, when was the last time you fueled? Do you need to eat again? But your stomach hurts, you don't want to eat again. There's so much going. But you tune it out. You focus on what you have to do, put one foot in front of the other and climb that mountain. Well, in law, if you're anything like me, I'm sure you are, you probably sit at your desk and your email goes, and the phone rings, and the email again. And then somebody maybe walks into your office and has a question, and there's something else. You're like, I need to get this brief done. I need to organize my docket and see where I am on all my cases. I'm stressed about this, I'm stressed about that. Yes, I'll get right back to you. Oh, let me respond to this email. Oh, the phone rang, let me answer that. And you're all over the place. Turn it off. Your emails can wait. The phone calls can wait. Your business is not going to tank because you didn't answer that phone. Okay, turn it off and focus. And the stress relief you get from that is tremendous. Not only do you stop expending energy in places it doesn't need to be, but you get done the thing that was stressing you out that you needed to do. Now, I put out an idea on one of my women's groups about racing, and I said, I'm giving this talk today. What are some of the lessons I might miss? And one came out of that group that I have to share with you. One of my friends on there said, age is not one of the obstacles. And that is true no matter what you're doing. Now, on the course, I shared part of that ultra course with a 63-year-old woman who was kicking my butt part of the time. She and I would leapfrog. I'd go faster on the downhill, she'd go faster on the uphill, we'd pass each other. And we got to talking at one point. She said, you know why I'm out here? I need to qualify for Iceland. Iceland's this huge world championships for Spartan. She's like, I looked and I needed another ultra, or I couldn't go to Iceland. I'm like, you want to go to Iceland? Now see, we all have our degrees of what we think is crazy, right? Like, I think that's insane. I'm like, you're trying to go to Iceland. You're 63. Oh, and by the way, her arm, she was run over by a school bus. And she has very little use of one of her arms. So she's doing things like carrying a massive bucket of rocks with mostly one arm. But she's out there and she's doing it, and age is not an obstacle. So if you think that age is going to stop you, whether you think you're too young to do something, you think you're too old to do something, you're not going to learn some new practice area, some new tech tool, I totally challenge you on that. I have seen too many examples of lawyers switching practice areas 40 years into their career. I've been at tech conferences where the most tech-savvy guy in the room was 75. And I've seen a 15-year-old do some amazing endurance events at Spartan. It doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you're on. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. Stop making excuses and using age as one of them. And keep moving. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. As you're doing something that's challenging you, that's pushing your boundaries, keep going, because it's the only way you're ever going to get to the end, to whatever that goal is. And when things don't go as you plan, don't forget to be resilient. My elementary school children were taught by their teacher with a rubber band. You know, emotional resilience. You get stretched, you got to come back. You're on the course, your partner doesn't show up, you go out and you do it anyway. You're in court and you're at the end of the trial and you have this gorgeous closing statement you wrote the night before. Only none of the evidence today supports that closing statement. And the judge is like, are you ready? Like, yeah, of course. And you're gonna have to redo it on the fly. That resilience is a key skill of what we do. I want to leave you with one last lesson that I've learned both in racing and in law. Find your tribe. What I mean by that is find those individuals who think enough like you to be an asset to you, but think differently enough from you to help you grow. I've been incredibly lucky in this regard. I do not for 1 second think it was my skill. I have an amazing tribe in both racing and in law. They're different groups. I cannot get a group of lawyers to go do a race with me. I tried making a Slack channel in my sort of world of lawyers who talk to each other, and it was called OCR. They didn't know it meant obstacle course racing. I had a bunch of techies join and say, you mean optical character recognition, right? Not resolution, yeah, recognition. And I was like, no, I'm trying to get a group to go do a Spartan race. They all left. So that didn't happen. But no, they're two different tribes. But my racing tribe, you know, people come and go. Some of them I meet on the race course, like the 63-year-old woman I was telling you about. I knew her for 6, 7 hours. We encouraged each other. It was awesome. At the end, she came and found me. We were so happy to be done. And we had our medals and we gave each other a big hug. And she might be on one of my Facebook groups for Spartan. I don't know. Maybe I'll never see her again. but she was an amazing inspiration for me that day. I also have a group of racers that we have a group text, and we're always encouraging each other. They're all crazier than me, so I'm probably gonna do something crazier because they keep encouraging me. And in law, I've met so many amazing people in a tribe that started for me through Lawyerist. And these are people who question my limiting beliefs. They really push me when I'm the one saying, yeah, I don't think I can do this. They're like, why not? And they push me, and they question me, and they question my assumptions. They encourage me, and they give me information that I probably wouldn't otherwise have. I wouldn't even know to look for some of the things they teach me. So maybe your tribe's here. You know, maybe you'll meet them here at this conference. Maybe you'll meet them in a mother's group. They might not even be lawyers. But find your group of people that's going to push you. And thank you for listening to me and hopefully learning something and taking something from this. And have a great afternoon at your last session.